This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right. Well, on the show today, I'm excited. I have Danny Veiga on, and we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and Facebook groups and whatever else we get into. As all of you know, this is pretty much unscripted. We just kind of have a conversation, and you guys get to hang out. Go ahead and ask questions. We will definitely make sure they get answered. We'll probably answer them toward the end, or Danny or I will just come back in and comment back to you because, as you guys know, we record this and then release it on the podcast too. So Welcome to the show, Danny.
Appreciate you having me on, Gabe.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad we could make it happen. And so tell me, when did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
First time I realized it was about 13 years ago when I decided, I was like, I don't want to work for anyone else. I want to work for myself and kind of like have my own schedule. And, at that time I was like, that's when I went entrepreneur. Yeah, I had, I think about 22 different jobs between like 16 and 22 years old.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I jumped from job to job and, it was a lot. Yeah, more than most people have in their lifetime. And, I dropped out of 4 different colleges as well. So I was always trying to find like the next thing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like I couldn't find that. So my whole goal was really like, I'm not a morning person as well either. So I was like, I hate waking up in the morning. I hate driving to whatever job I had. I'm like, if I could just walk to the next room, or at that time, like a couple feet away where my computer was, and just make money this way, I'm like, my life would be so much easier. So what I did, I started finding a couple of different work at home job opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I would go and apply to like those inbound call center representatives,
Mm-hmm.
Like T-Mobile. They outsource a lot of their stuff to people in the US, but they work from home.
Oh, wow.
So that's things cool. Like that. So I did that. I did remote technical support, fix viruses and malware over the phone with people, troubleshooting, things like that. And so I kind of did that for like about a year and a half before I really started my agency.
Nice. And did you have like past technical experience and things that you were doing, or did they just train you and throw you into it, or what? How did that work?
No, I've always been a techie guy. Ever since growing up, I had my first computer built when I was 13 by my best friend at the time. And I was like, this is awesome. I was like, I want to do this too. So I was always into computers. I would always tear them apart, build them back up. Then when I had some money, I would actually do it for gaming purposes. So I would build myself gaming rigs and things like that. But I've always been a techie guy. I was into electronics and things like that.
Very cool. So that was like early 20s when you tried to be employed for a little bit?
Yeah, between probably like 16 and 22 years old. I was just jumping from job to job. I was like a job junkie.
It's good exposure though. It's like you get to see what's out there and learn how things work. And I know for me, like I've only had 3 jobs. It's nice to look back and be like, oh yeah, we did that over there at the, at this place, or, this is how it works when you're running a multi-location, retail store. Like there's a lot to draw on from it. So I always feel like that kind of exposure is helpful. Yeah.
And I think to me, like it allowed me to see what I didn't want to do, like I didn't want to continue down the path of just having like a 9-to-5 job,
Yeah. So then you do that for a little bit and clearly don't enjoy it, and you want the freedom of being an entrepreneur. Take us from there to where you are today. How did entrepreneurship go for you early on, and what happened?
Yeah. So I did that for a while, about a year and a half. I was, I just had different work at home type jobs, and these are jobs that anyone can do, if you're working like a 9-to-5 and you want like a little bit of extra income, you can easily find like any of these companies that will employ you to work from home part-time, and you can make an extra $500, $1,000 a month. These are jobs that are still more viable today than they were 13 years ago when I started.
Yeah.
A couple, two quick sites that I utilized. Actually, I used 3. Craigslist was one of them. Rat Race Rebellion. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that's another good site
that's cool.
Has like these like real work at home job opportunities. And another one was the work at home mom forums, even though I wasn't a mom, but it had a ton of job opportunities that just moms would post, and I would just look to see which ones were viable and just they will tell you exactly how to apply and everything and how to get hired from these jobs, and I would just follow suit.
Very
So I
cool.
did that for a little while. This was back in about 2017. Went to 4 different colleges. By the time I graduated high school till about that time, and started working home jobs, and then from there we moved to California. Prior to moving to there, I had started looking for clients, 'cause like back in high school, I think during my sophomore year, I did a design, a class for a web design. I developed like those HTML frames type sites and things like that. So while working these work at home jobs for about a year and a half, I would see people, making, $3,000 to $5,000 a month doing websites for clients, like as their own agency. So that's kind of where the whole agency model started. Was I was like, well, I could do this too. I kind of remember back in the day of my high school days, I was like, I enjoy doing this. I've always been a techie guy. I'm good with computers. I can learn this on my own. You don't have to really go to college to learn web design. So I did that. I went to Craigslist, started finding smaller web design agencies that could outsource some of the design and development tasks to someone else, because they didn't have the money or the budget to hire someone in-house full time. So they had to outsource. So who better than me, right? So I did that. I picked up maybe about 2 clients. And then I was like, okay, I'm making a little bit of money, have a couple of different work at home jobs. Now, I guess I kind of started my agency as a freelancer, really. And then we had an opportunity to move to California, which we did back in, this was I think October of 2017 is when we moved from Florida to California.
Nice. And then, and now you're in Texas. So how did that all happen?
Yeah, so now we're in Texas. So in California, we lived there short term for about a year and a half. My wife's brother-in-law, he was with SWAT with San Diego Police Department, and he was prior military as well. But then he re-enlisted, I think with the reserves or something like that. And he got sent out to Afghanistan. 2 weeks in, he got killed in action. So that put like a big burden and stress on us. My wife was pregnant at the time with our son, who's now 9.5. So this was October of 2018. Yeah, October 2018 was when we got the news.
2008.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 2018 of when we got the news. And a couple months later, 3 months later, our son was born. So during that transition time, I had lost all my clients, because my wife couldn't deal with the stress. I had to kind of take over, deal with all the legal paperwork with the trust issues that he had going on. And, we had a little bit of money saved up, enough to last until about 2019 pre-summer, when the lawyers were like, what, his house, it's taken away, there's no more payments that could be made on it, all this legal stuff. So at that time, me and my wife, we were like, okay, we can either move back to Florida where we came from, or we can go to Texas where my sister-in-law lived, in Brownsville specifically. So we were like, we had maybe about $1,000 left, and we were like, let's just go to Brownsville. It's something new. Again, 22 different jobs. I was used to always going from place to place.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I, we've been married 17 years, and we've moved about 16 different times.
Wow.
So we're like the family nomads of like the digital lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like, okay, why not? Just go to Texas and just see what happens. So that's kind of how we went from Florida to California, and then to Texas, where we are now.
Very cool. And so you kind of started out, which sounds a pretty similar path. In years past would get on Craigslist and find business and do all that. I think everybody's tried that at least.
Yeah.
How have you kind of take us from there and catch us up to today? How have you evolved from there to where now you have the group and courses and based on what I've seen and what you've shared so far, before we started today, it sounds like you do obviously a ton of Facebook ads and all of that. So kind of fill us in on that part of your journey.
Yeah. So that one time when my brother-in-law had passed away, that was one of the 3 times that I lost all my clients. So that was obviously not my choice. That wasn't my decision to lose my clients. Luckily, I gained 2 of those back, and those 2 were the ones that I had originally gotten from Florida before we moved to California. So living now in Texas, now we're here. This is summer of 2018, summer of 2019. We were living in Texas. We're living with my sister-in-law. We were there for about a month and a half, and they were like, "You guys got to find your own place." So I was like, you're right. It's like we're a family of 5 now with our son who's about 6 months old, living with them. They were a family of 3 at the time, and I'm like, for that little house that they lived in, I'm like, we do have to find our own place.
Yeah.
So we did that. Found our own place. September 2019, it was when I first hit my 5-figure a month for my agency. I did 11,000 that month.
Nice.
And, put in many hours from there all the way to 2013. 2009. I think I said 2018. So yeah, 2008 was when my brother-in-law passed away. Then 2009 was when we were in Texas.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah. So now 2013 was the second time that I lost all my clients due to my wife having a pancreatic attack. She had 20% chance of living. She was hospitalized twice for about a month and a half each time.
Wow.
So I'm like, I need to figure out a way that I could have passive income, because as a designer and a developer, you relied on projects to really kind of sustain your life in your business, in your family. But the thing with web design is that sometimes your clients wouldn't pay you right away.
Yeah.
In my experience, maybe just because I sucked at sales, but my clients would pay my invoices sometimes 3 months late.
Holy cow.
I'm like, man, this is just like working a 9 to 5, but you're living instead of paycheck to paycheck, you're living project to project.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have like 20K in the bank or 30K that I could rely on. So, so she was in the hospital. I lost all my clients. Second time again, regained them a couple months later. And then in 2015, 2015 was when I was like, you know what? If something were to happen again, either to her, to myself, or we just had to step away, I had to step away from my business, even for a couple of weeks, I needed to have a way to have passive income coming in.
Yeah.
And I was like, obviously I've done this web design stuff for, maybe 7-8 years at the time. I was like, I don't want to live the next 10 years of my life doing 80 hours a week with, living paycheck to paycheck per se. I was like, I need to figure something else out. And that's kind of when I started diving into Facebook. I actually started logging into Facebook around that time. I had my account a couple of years before that, but I never really, did social media, I always thought social media was like a joke. I was like, this is just a bunch of people online just sharing their personal life. I'm like, that's not me.
Yep.
I'm like, whatever, I'm going to try. Let me just kind of join a couple of groups and see what people are up to, So I did that. And I started seeing people talk about Facebook ads and how they've been able to use Facebook ads. And, they had an agency just like I did, but they did it in a way where they were providing lead generation for businesses, or they were doing it for themselves. So I was like, okay, this is totally different than what I'm used to. I did a couple paid AdWords for clients back, when I was a design and developer, but I was never fully immersed into direct marketing, like with Facebook ads. So I was like, I figured out a way to get myself out of holes in the past. I'm like, if I drop my clients again, if I don't succeed in internet marketing, I could always go back to doing what I've done for the past 8 years.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's a risk I'm willing to take. Let's go for it and just see what happens. So I did that. And yeah, it's really been the best decision that I've ever done. Really kind of just to follow, what I envisioned for the future for my family. And, not only that, but doing websites for businesses, I really didn't see that I was able to really grow their business financially. Building a website was just building a website, just throwing up a template, changing some code, but it really wasn't monetizing their business in a way that, agencies do now with Facebook ads or whatever other channel they're using. Right. But more of like that lead generation model. That's kind of where we are now, I was showing a lot of case studies with success that I was having. How a lot of people hit me up for consulting. Then people started hitting me up about a course. I was like, I don't have a course, but I think it's a good idea. I've got 10, 15 people asking me about it. I'm like, why not? So at the same time, this was December of 2016, the 31st of December was when I decided to grow a group. I started my group, and kind of the rest is history, just provided tons of value, grew it into what it is now, which is about 51,000 people strong.
That's awesome. I want to make sure I understood right. When you decided to stop doing web design, did you just quit cold turkey and not do it from that forward?
Yeah, I did. Because I had tried it in the past, ever since I started, getting clients and doing web design, I was immersed into just internet marketing. I mean, I would see Russell Brunson on different, email news, email lists that I was part of and things like that. So I would see him coming out with his potato gun. I would see other people with like those mini squeeze pages coming out all the time, trying to sell, whatever they were selling at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that seems fun. It's a lot different than what I was doing at the time. I was like, that's what I knew internet marketing was putting up squeeze pages, mini squeeze pages, and trying to sell your products. I was like, let me try that. So I always tried doing that. I actually have really old YouTube videos of like my first digital product that I did about 6 years ago.
Nice.
I had one sale. It was a very crappy product, but I did have one sale. But so I always saw people having that type of success. I'm like, that seemed passive, seemed passive income that could be recurring. Let me try that. I always failed. So that's when I was like, in 2015, I was like, if I, quit cold turkey, if I didn't have the success in the direction that I wanted to go, I could just resort back to what I was doing this whole time, which mind you, I was pretty well off compared to most people,
Mm-hmm.
We had a good, decent lifestyle, but it just wasn't, I wasn't happy with what I was doing as far as like business goes, because I knew there was much more to life than just sitting behind a computer 80 hours a week.
Yeah. I can relate. I've built thousands of websites and
yeah, exactly. So you know how that is.
it's super hard to make it sustainable, and it's totally a paycheck to paycheck job typically.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But I think one thing you point out, which is like really interesting, and I see a lot of I think real entrepreneurs realize that if they're willing to step away, drop it all, kind of burn it to the ground and start over, and they know they have the confidence to do that, then that's a huge thing, because too many people get scared with taking action or wanting to step forward or try anything, and so they never do anything, and then they can never realize their dream or their idea. But do you think that's part of just kind of your makeup or how you are, or do you think it was from the past history where you already quote unquote lost the business 3 or 4 times and you're like, well, I already know what's going to happen?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the success that I've had now was definitely attributed to those I call those valley moments in your business, in your journey that you've had. Because if I didn't have those dips in my business where I lost my clients and I was able to kind of like hustle my way back to being successful, because that hustle term was something that my wife coined just from those moments that we had where we didn't have anything, and then I just hustled my way into getting clients and kind of growing my business back. If I didn't have those experiences, then I would definitely not be where I am now. So I think most people, like you mentioned, they don't want to take those risks, but those risks is what's going to propel you. Maybe not right now, but a year or 2 later down the road, that's going to be those experiences and those stories that you can tell. That's going to allow you to kind of propel your business in whichever direction that you want to go.
Yeah.
So I think that everyone should go through those struggles because it's going to make them stronger at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think adversity teaches us so much, and it's like if you don't have much adversity, then you're not that valuable usually. End of the day.
Right.
I've never asked anybody this that I remember anyway, especially not on a live or on the podcast, but I'm curious what your thoughts would be on this. If the internet disappeared tomorrow, and technology too, so like as we know it, computers and smartphones and all that, and there was no internet, what would you do?
I would figure out a way to make it work really quickly. I would figure out, business in itself and in its entirety would change dramatically without technology. We would go back to like just traditional word of mouth, and who knows? I mean, it would be a lot different, but I would find whatever pain points businesses would have, or anyone would have at that point. I mean, who knows if many businesses, I mean, I'm sure they would exist, but it wouldn't be at a scale that they are now.
Yeah.
But like whatever pain points that I see people, you know, or businesses would have. I mean, marketing now is still the same principles as it would be without technology. You just have to find a way to make it work, you know, and being a successful entrepreneur who's gone through those struggles, you can find a way to make it work in any circumstance. And I think that's what really makes you an entrepreneur, is being able to figure that out on your own.
Yeah. That's a good answer. That's what I think I would have. And I always tell Rachel, my girlfriend, I'm always like, if everything burned to the ground tomorrow, or like we lost the internet or whatever, I'm like, we'd be fine. Like, give me 30 days tops. And like,
Right.
it'd be fine, because I think what you mentioned is really key. It's like the principles of marketing, the way that you sell, the way you interact with people would not change, in the sense that you still have to have relationships. You still have to work with people. You still need things from other people. And so, no, we couldn't do it like this. I'd have to drive down to Brownsville or wherever you are now. But it would still, you still have to exchange, like all this stuff still has to happen. So,
right. Yeah. There still has to be that exchange of value and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like you mentioned, you know, marketing in itself wouldn't change. It's just a channel, you know, like doing lead generation for businesses, you know, nowadays most people use Facebook ads, but you got Instagram, you got YouTube, you got SEO, you got Google AdWords. These are all different channels.
Mm-hmm.
The internet in its entirety is just a channel that we use to grow our business and to do marketing. But, you know, at the end of the day, the principle is still in itself in the core of marketing, whether you're using internet or whether you're using person to person with networking events and things like that.
Right.
You know, that's not gonna change your outcome.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. And yeah, I think anybody's at risk if they just only ever stay in one channel all the time. I mean, because channels always change.
Right.
So they may not go away, but they always change.
That's true.
Yeah. So then you started Entrepreneur Hustle, which is your big group. And I've been in there for a while and kind of did some more digging the last couple of weeks too, because I was curious about what we may talk about today. But tell me about how that started, kind of like the idea, and then how you've grown it, because it seems like it's grown really, really fast.
Yeah, it has. It's been a year and 5 months. That it went from 0 to, I think we're at like almost 52,000 people. I have about 1,000 people pending to join that I haven't let in yet. So, I mean, we'd be almost at 53,000 with that. But I mean, just doing lead generation using Facebook ads. One thing that really helped me grow a following at first, you know, meaning like my friends on Facebook were all my ideal clients and audience,
Mm-hmm.
was just putting myself out there. You know, putting myself out there was not something I was ever used to. You know, big introvert, never really talked to people. You know, I mean, I couldn't even get my own clients. I had to resort to partnering up with agencies who got the clients to give me the work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how bad I sucked at sales. So I'm like, you know, I got to put myself out there. And it wasn't until I spoke to a gentleman, his name was John. I was trying to start another group about freelancing. This was maybe about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I interviewed him. And one of the last things that he mentioned to me at the very, very end was put your case study, put your results and your case studies out there for people to hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm like, you know, I've always been like a humble type of person who've never, you know, bragged or anything like that. So I always thought to myself, if I do that, I'm just bragging, you know.
Mm-hmm. But
he positioned it in a way where you're not really doing that. You're helping people see the opportunities that are available to them, you know. So once took me about a month to really get my head wrapped around that. But once I did, I'm like, you know, he's totally right. So I started doing that more and more. So this was like the summer, from the summer all the way to the end of 2016 was when I just put myself out there in different groups in my wall and just posted, you know, case studies and results that I was having and things like that. And it helped. It helped grow a following. And then from there, so people started asking me about consulting to teach them what I knew. And then people started asking me about a course, you know. And then once people started doing that, I saw other people having success with their course, with their digital sales, digital products, by first having a group, you know, kind of as a front end of the funnel. where they
Right.
could get people into the group, and then from there they could have sales. And I was like, I need to do that. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'll figure out a way. And December 31st, 2016, I woke up and I was like, at that time I was like, I need to have a group. Came up with a quick name. I knew entrepreneur was a searchable keyword in Facebook. I knew it was highly searched. I knew there was groups at the time that had 20, 30,000 people in it. I'm like, if I could just get to that point, I'll be happy. So I had, I was like, okay, the group is going to have the word entrepreneur in it, but then it's got to have another phrase that's short and that's catchy, and then of course, from what I was telling you, my wife would always coin the term hustle to me. I was like, just makes sense. So entrepreneur hustle is kind of how that name was created. And it was just sharing value and sharing what people wanted. Again, most of all my friends on Facebook were marketers. So I gave them what they wanted, which at the time were funnels and walkthroughs of different campaigns that I did.
Gotcha.
But I didn't just release that on my wall, or I didn't send them to an opt-in. I sent them to my group. So I was like, if you want this chiropractic walkthrough that I've done, that I've had success in, you can see that video that I did in my group. So the whole push was like push people to my group the whole time.
Gotcha.
And then from there, core sales started coming in, and then coaching, and was able to get agency clients that way too. So the group took a while to grow, a year and 5 months to hit 53,000 people. But I think it really helped me, especially where I am now, because I can go in so many different directions. And I'll have that following that I could grow another channel. Like, for example, podcast is something I'm interested in. I could grow my podcast quickly from my group,
Yeah.
Same thing with YouTube. I could get YouTube subscribers all from my group.
Very cool. And have you just grown it all organically from like posting on your wall and asking people in, or did you end up switching to other strategies? Cause I looked at some posts in the group. I think it was in the group the other day, where it was like, there was a big hockey stick somewhere at like 6 or 8 months. I forget where it was. Not a huge hockey, but it was like, it really picked up at a certain point. I'm just kind of curious how that worked for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, at first it was just feeding people from my friends list to the group.
Mm-hmm.
My whole goal was like, okay, let me hit about 1,000 people in the first 30 days. I think I did about 16 or 1,800 in the first 30 days. But it was just funneling people into the group, and then just hitting it hard every day, going live, showing, sharing case studies, sharing results, sharing knowledge of what I knew to help other people out. And I mean, it was really a full-time job, and it still kind of is. I mean, it's a lot easier now than it was at the beginning, even though it's a larger group, it's a lot easier to manage now because I have moderators and things like that.
Yeah.
And the group just grows by itself. I don't really have to put too much work into feeding it because it's just a natural growth from Facebook. But there was one time that it was shut down for about a week.
Wow.
I don't know if you're a part of the group or not, but this was like before summer of last year.
No, I don't know if I was in then.
Yeah, it was shut down for about a week. And, all of my core sales at the time all came from my group. So, so I was hit hard. I was like, oh crap. I was like, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I started diversifying. After my group came back, I started diversifying and not just only relying on the group, but, rely on like maybe building an email list or, going live on my business page and creating custom audiences, because everything on social media, you can think of it as a list. You have your Facebook group as a list. Your friends on Facebook is a list as well that you could sell to, or that you could show value to, right? Your videos on your business page, your custom audiences, that's also another list.
Yeah.
So I think you got to think of different groups and different strategies as like list building rather than just like, numbers.
Yeah. I think I remember some friends getting shut down then. Was it just Facebook like auditing your group or something? Because there was like a little wave there where a bunch of stuff got shut down. What happened with it?
Yeah. With my group specifically, I think what happened was a couple of people reported it, and Facebook just, they took about a week. That was like the longest week of my life.
Yeah.
Like every morning, every day I would check my emails. I mean, I had a lot of people supporting me too, which I think really helped bring it back.
Yeah.
A lot of people were, they had, people that they knew at Facebook that they would reach out to. So I think that might have got the ball rolling a little bit faster than normal. Because if it wasn't for them, who knows if I would have gotten it back or not.
Yeah.
If there wasn't people communicating with Facebook, like on the inside, but yeah, hard work for sure to growing that group, but I think it was the best thing that I've ever done for my business.
Yeah.
If it was ever taken away, obviously that would suck. But right now I think of it as an asset, because it's a huge asset for my business.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's groups. I feel like, I mean, I think your idea and timing was probably perfect in some senses, because sometimes you hit the wave the right way, but then also, like you said, putting the right value in there and just teaching people and showing what you do is huge. And then I also have seen a huge shift in the last 6 months, even where Facebook just plays up the value of groups so much more in the feed and everything too. So they're realizing that, oh, there's big groups like Danny's and like obviously all the thousands or millions that there are out there now.
Oh yeah, there's tons.
And they're like, this is where people actually engage and have deeper relationships than just friends on Facebook or things like that. And so I think it's just getting more and more focus and attention, which is awesome, because I don't remember if we friended first or if I met you in there or how we connected, but end of the day, it's like I have more connection and more meaningful conversations and more relationships out of my groups than I do just friends on my wall per se. Once I meet somebody in a group, then we're friends on the side too. But
right. That's kind of how I do it too. I don't just automatically accept anyone's friend. I mean, I'm maxed out as it is already. I kind of have to drop people, every so often to get fresh people in.
Yep.
But, once I built that relationship with them, and now I do it strategically, where I would just drop people who don't engage with me anymore on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I mean, I really don't have many real family members on my wall, because they can reach me on the phone or something like that. Right. And everything that I talk about on Facebook is usually business related, or it always ties back to business somehow.
Yeah.
But it was all grown organically. That I never ran paid ads to my group, which I know many people do, and it's successful that way too. But
I've never run ads to a group. I've thought about testing or messing with it, and I do know people that do, which is works well too. But that's just it's pretty interesting to see certain things, groups or pages or certain things will pick up a little bit of virality and then they go, which is what it seems. Like I said, I was looking at your graph growth and I was like, holy shit, that was kind of fast there. But yeah, that's very cool. As you grew, like what point did you realize that like, oh, I need moderators, or like how did you deal with that? Because going from like 500 or 1,000 or a couple thousand is totally different than having 50,000.
Yeah. So I mean, I added my good friend now, Travis. He's the other admin in the group, and I brought him on a couple months into the group growing. I forgot exactly at what point, but he was kind of there since day one, and then he became a moderator. Then I was like, let me kind of just we built that relationship up. Let me just add him as an admin. He's now a good friend of mine. But it wasn't until, probably like 6,000-7,000 people, and then really like 15,000 is when I really needed help, because I had my agency, I had courses, I was doing a little bit of coaching inside the course, and I was like, I just don't have the time necessary to remove. It was mainly all the spam.
Yeah,
that's really where you need moderators, is just control the spam. It gets crazy. Yeah. And that's one reason I haven't added the other 1,000 people in there, is because I know when I add a bunch of people at once, I know Facebook's going to feed me more people, but at the same time, like you're going to have probably about a week or two of just spam coming in.
Gotcha.
And then that's where I'm like, hey guys, I'm letting in 1,000 people, please, we got spam coming in again.
Play by the rules.
Yeah. But the good thing now though, like all the followers, like all the members in the group, not followers, but the members in the group, they really enjoy like that community relationship that the group gives them. So they themselves now are kind of like moderators, where they're always reporting spam.
Gotcha.
So that helps everyone. So like if I see someone posting 10 minutes ago and someone's reported as spam, if I try to delete it, it's already deleted.
Gotcha.
So the other moderators have already kind of, picked up the task of just deleting that post or removing the user. I block people immediately, and I don't bring them back if they're spammy.
Yeah. And then for I love how you're talking about, like, obviously there's different lists and different assets that you can build as a business, and groups is a huge one. When did you start releasing courses, and was it successful from that point, or have you seen more improvement as the group has grown? What's been the kind of thought process from a business perspective of how you've created courses and released them? And I don't know how many you have either. I've seen a few of them, but I don't know how many you have.
Well, when I first launched, again, I was giving away case studies, results. I grew my followers. I did some consulting. People started asking me about a course. So at that time, when I first launched my group, I launched my course at the same time. I don't think it was well put together at the time because it was my first course that I've ever really created and sold. So I had a hard time figuring out at what price point to sell it as. So when I first launched my course, I sold it as more of like a monthly membership.
Gotcha.
So it was at a price point of $97 a month or $297, which I called my mastermind course at the time. And the main difference was just in that course, in the $297, I had walkthroughs of different niches that I've done in the past, So I did videos on exactly, the copy, the strategy, all that kind of stuff, and the results that I was able to give them. Where in my normal course, it was more of like the technical step-by-step walkthroughs of Facebook advertising. But I mean, because of the group, my course blew up like crazy, extremely fast. Pre the group, this was last year in January, the most I had ever made was, I think I hit 22,000 one time during my web design agency, but I would always hover between 10 to 15, always, for a number of years. But when I first launched my course last year in January, I hit 32.
Wow. I
was like, wow. I was like, this monthly membership stuff works. So, it worked for a while. I did really, really good with sales for course sales last year. But I never continuously fed it in a funnel. I would always, because I'm more like kind of like an organic guy. For my courses, I only ran about $2,500 worth of ads.
Gotcha.
And I did about, I think, $420,000 of gross sales for my course. Wow. So $2,500 in ads to make almost $500,000. That's like really good ROI. But but I attribute all that to my group. If I didn't have the group, I would have never hit those numbers. Never. Not in my wildest dreams, right? But so that the course changed, from just being what it was then to closing down that monthly membership, having like a one-time $997 type of structure, and then really kind of adding more of a foundation behind it rather than just like a step-by-step at course. Because my course was super raw. Like if you didn't understand technical, like you would not have been able to go through my course because it was that raw.
Gotcha.
But it's just, the course was just a progression of knowing what people wanted and just making those necessary changes in order to deliver that course on a more bigger scale. Because I was able to figure out like those holes that I had in the course, and what people expected out of it. And then I could make those changes into what it is now.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you started with the monthly membership and then you switched to just a one-time payment. How does that work inside of like your head or your model of going from you want passive income to you just go to one-time payments? I know it's a lot more, but what was the logic behind that? Because I'm always curious about course owners or people that launch courses and choose one path or the other.
Yeah. I struggled a long time trying to figure out, and there was a lot of people that I talked to or, that I looked up to and kind of consulted figuring out which direction I wanted to go. Because the last thing that I wanted to do was piggyback from, 97 to a one-time fee, then back to 97 again, because at that point I would just water down the value of the course in itself, because people would be like, he's switching from one to another all the time. So I had to do it slowly, and I had to do it strategically in a way that it wouldn't get watered down and that people wouldn't think that I was just trying to sell it just to make money, because I still had my agency going. But, you know, I think just having that monthly membership helped to get a lot of people in quickly. And it would have only been sustainable if I had new content coming out every month.
Gotcha.
Because you have to have a hook at the end of that month for people to subscribe the next month again.
Yeah.
I didn't have that, you know? So I think if I would have had it continued at that point where it was the monthly membership, I mean, I could have gotten thousands and thousands of people in, but would they have stayed, and would I have built up that tribe? Like Russell Brunson says, like your 1,000 loyal followers, would I've had that? Probably not, you know, because they were churning left and right after a couple months.
Gotcha.
You know, but I think it worked out well to my advantage, creating at that level, seeing what people really wanted, changing up the course, changing the structure. And now it's, you know, course sales I don't really push it as much as like coaching, you know, as I do with coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it worked out to my advantage pretty much.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just asked because I have a handful of one-time fee stuff. They're not the same courses, but I have a handful of one-time fee products or courses. And then I have a couple that are reoccurring. And you made a really good point that if you don't have a hook every month of new stuff or why they should come back, then retention may be difficult.
Very difficult.
So, yeah. So that's definitely an interesting point. Very cool. So kind of what's the future look like for you? I know I mentioned before we jumped on here, I saw you had a huge mastermind get together a couple weeks ago with some of your mastermind folks, which was cool. It was nice to see little pieces of that on Facebook. And obviously you have the group. And so like what's next for you?
What I'm focusing on now is just trying to, you know, continue refining my course, you know, because of how I structured it. I have so many videos in my mastermind course. I have over 200 videos in there.
Gotcha.
So what I'm doing now is really breaking it up and creating like a lot of mini courses to be able to give free courses away, funnel people in, kind of seeing what I have to offer, and then kind of upselling them on the next thing, right? In order to get people into my coaching, you know, that's the whole goal from that. But not always, but just trying to expand my horizons from just being just in Facebook with groups to, you know, a lot more live videos, a lot more content that I'll be sharing. Speaking of content, you know, blogging, kind of reaching out to other, like doing guest blog posts, becoming contributors on like larger publications, which I've looked into already. You know, YouTube, kind of going more harder on YouTube, starting a podcast now that I have the group. So there's lots of opportunities now. And again, I contribute a lot of that to my group and the followers and the members that are in there, because I can push any of these, you know, other channels that I create and grow them quickly because of the asset that I already have right now.
Very cool.
So it's just really just expansion and scaling. You know, I've outsourced a lot of stuff that I do right now from my different businesses, and it helps me be able to kind of be on this podcast right now, because I don't have to worry about, you know, running the business. I could just focus on things that I enjoy. Yeah.
Awesome. That makes sense. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you being on, Danny. This has been fun, and it's kind of nice to have you pull the curtain back and see what it's all like. So what's the easiest way for people to connect to you? Obviously, I'm going to link to the group in the show notes so they can check that out. And where else can they reach out to you?
Right. So definitely the group. Also my website, DannyVeiga.com. That's DANNYVEIGA.com is my website.
Cool.
So definitely be sharing a lot of content on there, and whatever other channels I come out with, you know, it's all going to be linked from there too.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for being on, and thanks everybody for all the comments and interaction. We'll all come back and reply to you here when we finish up. And
awesome, Gabe.
Yep. So thanks so much for being on, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. You too. Thanks for having me on.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.